Okay, welcome. I will now call the June 16th board meeting of the Lane Community College Board of Education to order. In recognition of Governor Kate Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives executive order to combat the spread of COVID-19, this meeting is being held remotely. I'd like to remind board members and staff to keep themselves muted and to use the raise hand feature when you would like to speak. Board members are also asked to have their video turned on so you're visible to the viewing public. Donna, could you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Sure. Holly Johnson.
Present.
Angela Van Kraus.
Present.
Mike Eister.
Here.
Matt Keating.
Here.
Chelsea Jennings.
Here.
Rosie Pryor.
Here.
Lisa Fragola.
Present. Thank you. Good to see everybody. And we will start our meeting this evening with a land acknowledgement. And so this evening we have Maggie Wright from LCCEA.
Thanks, Lisa. Hello, everyone. My name is Maggie Wright. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Open Educational Resources Librarian at Lane Community College. We begin our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homeland of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted and destroyed. We start our meeting with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Thank you, Maggie. Thanks for taking a moment of your evening to be here with us to read that. All right, so for the viewing public, if you haven't seen the agenda, we do have a little bit of an unusual meeting tonight. We're going to begin the evening with a series of hearings, public hearings for statements from the public. And so I will be gaveling us in and out of those, and then we'll return to our regular Board of Education meeting. So I am going to get to use my mallet a lot this evening. So I am going to close our board meeting, and I am going to open a public hearing on FY 21-22 budget adoption and appropriation. This is an opportunity for the public to provide comment to the Board of Education on this topic. Do we have anyone who would like to provide public comment on the fiscal year 21-22 budget adoption and appropriation? Okay, if there's anyone who is an attendee who would like to do that, you may also raise your hand if you haven't yet submitted your name for public comment. And I'll give it another moment. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone for public comment, so I am going to close the public hearing on the FY 21-22 budget. So that one is closed. And I am going to open a public hearing on the use of construction manager general contractor method for the Florence Bond project, or as you might sometimes hear it called, the CMGC method. So again, this is an opportunity for the public to provide comment to the Board of Education on the topic of using the construction manager general contractor method for the Florence Bond project. Are there any statements from the audience regarding this topic? Okay, so we don't have any requests via email, and if are any attendees who would like to make public comment, And if you could raise your hand if you did not have an opportunity to submit a request. All right, I'm not seeing anyone who would like to provide public comment on this topic, so I'm going to close that public hearing. And I'm going to open a public hearing on the award of sole source contracting to Convergent Technologies for fire and security system maintenance. So this is an opportunity for the public to provide comment to the Board of Education on the topic of the sole source contract to Convergent Technologies for fire and security system maintenance. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment on this topic? Still do not have any requests via email. So if there is anyone in the attendees who would like to provide public comment on this topic, please feel free to raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anyone who would like to provide public comment on this topic, so I am going to close the public hearing and I am reconvening the Board of Education meeting for the evening of June 16th. And we will continue with that. So I would like to adopt the agenda without objection with flexibility. So is there any objection to adopting the agenda with flexibility? Seeing none, we've adopted the agenda with flexibility. So before we begin our preliminary items, I want to let the public and the Board of Education know that we did publicly notice for an executive session this evening, but we will not be needing to have that executive session. That issue has been resolved. So I will move us on to the President's report. Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair Fragola, and welcome everyone to the 2021 June board meeting. So June's a month of celebrations, recognitions, and remembrance, and I refer all of you to my full report for a long list of all the wonderful things that's been going on at the college. Tonight, though, we're going to hear from our Board of Ed to formally recognize June 19th as Juneteenth, a national commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. I'd also like to recognize a celebration of Pride Month to honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan and to recognize the impact that our LGBTQ individuals have on society. It's my great pleasure to congratulate our board and our employees on having over 1,100 students complete almost 1,900 associate degrees and certificates this past Saturday. Well done. It took grit, it took hard work on the part of our students, our faculty, and all of our employees to get everyone past the finish line during this global pandemic. Special thanks to a very large team of people that coordinated that event. And I hope to say this is our very last virtual ceremony. Working on this June, we're also been working on our accreditation self-study. It's finally coming to a close. A team of 27 writers across the campus have been putting finishing touches on this report. We are hoping to have campus-wide distribution in July for submission in August to NUCU. We'll focus on our future efforts on preparing the college for the visit in October. So we've been informally informed that the Community College Support Fund is one step closer to being fully funded at $702 million. It's not 100%, but we are feeling good that it keeps jumping over every hoop. Special thanks to our board and all of our employee groups for their advocacy during this session. On May 21st, Governor Brown signed House Bill 2091, which is the LCC Service District Expansion Bill. It expands Lane Community College's service district to now include all residents in the northwest corner of the county. Many thanks to Brett Roulette for all of his advocacy on this on behalf of the college. As we begin the meeting of our last meeting of the academic year, I want to give special recognition to Matt Keating and Chelsea Jennings for their contributions to this board. Matt, a Lane alum, served for 8 years and through 2 presidents. Chelsea Jennings came to us to fulfill the Zone 5 vacancy, and much of her time has been served during a pandemic. We'll be saying more formal goodbyes a little later on in the meeting tonight. I also wish to recognize our outgoing student government president, Amber Coleman, for her service. We thank you, Amber, for your leadership, and we wish you happiness and success as you move on. And once again, Amber, we have a little something for you later on in the meeting. Finally, I'm announcing my retirement effective June 30, 2022. Next June, I will have completed my 5-year term, and I will have completed, hopefully, my 5-year goals. I'll be leaving with a new strategic plan in place to take the college into the next 5 years. We will have completed our 7-year accreditation cycle with NUQ. We will have completed revitalization of our governance system. We'll have sustainable lease partnerships with Pacific University on our main campus and new partnership agreements with OSU, Pacific, Bushnell, and University of Oregon. We'll have additional new lease partnerships with 4J, the city of Eugene, downtown at our Mary Spildy Center, and new vendor partnerships for food and textbooks. But the biggest accomplishment, as you know, has been that with this group, this team, and the entire college, we were awarded a $121 million bond to address our aging infrastructure. Happy to see that we'll have a replenished budget this year from state allocations and our American Recovery Program funds. Very important, though, is we've learned a lot about being a college in the past 2 years, going remote, dealing with the fires, dealing with the pandemic. We can now teach and we can operate in a remote environment. There's much to do, and we'll be fine-tuning many of these final projects as we bring the campus and this year to closure. I wish to thank this board for their unwavering support to our students, their constituents, this college, and I really look forward to the coming year, to working with this board, to our students and all of our employees in my final year. This concludes my report, but I want to leave you with a short clip from our music department to show you how our students have had their lives transformed using song.
A little bit of love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love, a little bit of love, and I'm on my way. A little love, a little love. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love. A little bit of love and the sun comes shining. A little love, a little love. A little bit of kindness and someone smiling. A little love, a little love. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love. Little drops of rain can trickle down into a puddle, then the puddles get together, making streams that make a river. The rivers fill the valleys with a roaring and a rushing, and the little drops of rain have made a wide, 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 wide ocean. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A long way, but we'll get there together. A long way, but we'll get there soon. Along the way, we can lean on each other. A little love goes a long, long way. A little love, a little love, a little love.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. That was wonderful. And thank you to our music department for sharing that with us. And Marge, thank you for your service to the college. We're glad we get you for one more year, reluctantly letting you go. So let's move on to statements from the audience. Board policy BP 320 states that the board will not respond directly to issues raised by the audience, but will refer those issues to the president for appropriate action. However, we do greatly appreciate attendees' participation in tonight's LCC board meeting and the willingness of stakeholders to address the board. So I do have some folks signed up to give public comment tonight. And the first person that we will be hearing from is Brooke Taylor, who is an LCC chemistry faculty member. Do we have Brooke here with us? Do we have Brooke here?
Brooke is here. It looks like she's turned her camera on, but we can't hear you, Brooke.
Do you want to try it without the headphones? I'm still not able to hear you. So Brooke, maybe you could give me a thumbs up. Do you, I could go on to the next person and you could log out and try coming back in. Let's give that a try. So Brooke, I'm going to suggest that maybe you leave the Zoom meeting and try coming back in. Sometimes that helps. And I'm going to move us on to Gary Mort, who is also an LCC chemistry faculty member. Do we have Gary here? I see Gary. Okay, Gary, you want to go ahead and turn your camera on and unmute yourself?
Sorry, I'm on a laptop and you were a couple layers down. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name's Gary Mort. I was hired at LCC as a full-time chemistry instructor in the fall of 1998. I'm not appearing here tonight primarily as an LCC employee. Like you, I am an elected member of a school board. Like this board, the board I'm a member of is a policy board with a single employee. Like each of you, I'm a volunteer, and like you, I have other pressing life issues that would take me away from the time I spend on board business. For me, for example, I work for you full-time, and tonight I'm appearing here instead of attending any other aspect of my life, including board work. I cannot say for you, but for me, that has meant that information about the function of our district comes primarily through a lens provided by our one employee and their designated preferred surrogates. Based on my experience, which seems unlike what I've experienced at LCC, our district does have a functional relationship with its unions, which is based on mutual trust and respect. Our district has suffered at times grievously by the lens through which the board has seen it. So I'm here tonight to provide at least a sliver of a window into the world out there, but really here at LCC, education is a people business. We, at least in my view, are here to provide opportunities to the people of our district to learn things of value to them and to their communities. That's it. We can have longer, fancier, more elaborate, carefully, painfully parsed mission statements and goals. We can assess and talk about equity and have shiny, new, better ways to do things that will fix all the things. But those things don't address why we're here. If I'm right, if LCC is in the end here to help people learn, then the heart and the lungs of that are the professional staff that serve that need. Faculty, most visibly and in classroom, but no less the staff who both directly and indirectly, often invisibly support both that instruction and the myriad invisible wheels that keep the institution running. My view is from the ground, and there is for somewhat limited, excuse me, but from that peculiar perspective as a full-time teacher in a teaching division, LCC has never, literally never in 20 years managed to successfully respond to needed changes in staffing in a timely, appropriate, professional manner. It does not matter whether the college was given days or years of notice. In the end, a timely hire was not made, or if it was only through the Herculean efforts from the ground side of the equation. That's insane. It's the product of a failed vision and, from my perspective, a failed institution. A few minutes ago, we heard our president announce her resignation. I would like this board to wait until the fall of 2022 to start assembling a process to replace her. I'm honestly not sure what the president does, but I'm sure that whatever role she's playing can be replaced and bridged by existing staff or simply done without. If you feel a rising sense of panic at that thought, don't worry. You can all come together next summer to find a replacement. Maybe that sounds crazy to you. It does to me, but it's precisely the situation we find ourselves out in teaching world. We find it incomprehensible that we wouldn't have a president, but somehow, regardless of what it is that she does, she doesn't actually directly touch what I understand to be our primary function. Yet here, out on the pointy end of the stick, that's exactly what happens with creepy reproducibility. It doesn't matter how much turnover happens in our administration, it doesn't change. I think it's disgusting. My challenge to you as a fellow board member, just think about this. It sounds dramatic. Actually, it just sounds insane. If you're hearing this for the first time tonight, why is that? And
Gary, that's your time. Could you wrap it up, please?
Yep. And if this is all old news to you, then what on earth are you doing here? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So up next, I have Joe Escobar from the LCC History faculty member. Do we have Joe here with us? Okay, welcome, Joe.
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes. Hello, President Hamilton and members of the board. My name is Joe Escobar. I'm a history instructor and have had the privilege of working with and for the students of Lane Community College for the past 26 years. In all that time, this is the first time I have felt compelled to address the Board of Education directly. In 1995, one of my initial job duties was to run the Proctored testing lab in the social science department. Since that time, I've been involved with and a faculty user of Proctored testing for both my online and classroom-based courses. Before the COVID shutdown, the Instructional Testing Services Lab was open 6 days a week with extended evening hours to serve all students. Unfortunately, when the campus reopens this fall, faculty have been notified that if and when the ITS lab and the Science, Math, and Engineering Resource Centers open, that they will not be able to provide the same services they provided students and faculty before the campus shut down. Faculty Council passed the following resolution at their last meeting to be read to the Board of Education. Here it is in abbreviated form in order to keep within the 3-minute time limit. Resolution. Whereas the LCC administration has announced plans to reduce or restrict the Instructional Testing Services Lab and Science and Math and Engineering Resource Center, whereas a growing number of departments and programs and their students across the college have used the ITS lab, whereas the federal government has provided millions of dollars in aid for supporting any COVID-related costs beyond the regular costs of running the facilities, and whereas such closures would deny all students access to proctored facilities and services which they had been using prior to the closure of campus, result in a dramatic loss of flexibility to students in fulfilling the proctored testing requirements of both their online and traditional courses, exacerbate equity concerns since restricting the ITS lab would disproportionately affect students who work multiple jobs and those who have difficulty finding childcare, potentially cause the increase of litigation related to student privacy and the false positive reports of cheating by any technical web and camera-based proctoring solution, increase the cost of instruction, especially in courses taught by part-time instructors who need to be compensated for any time spent in administering proctored makeup tests to students who miss a class, effectively make the decision for all faculty that assessments for online courses be take-home based, where students can actively use any resources to look up information rather than having to internalize and synthesize the knowledge presented in their courses, and result in more students missing more tests, some of which will never be made up, leading to lower grades and completion rates and higher dropout rates. The Faculty Council urgently requests the administration reopen the proctoring labs to all faculty wishing to use them as a vital service for all of their students and all of their courses, effective no later than the beginning of fall 2021 term. I thank you for your time and consideration, and feel free to contact me directly, even in the summer, if you have further questions.
Thank you, Joe. And I hope that was your timer.
It was. Was
It
it
was.
5 minutes? All right.
Yes, you were right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have Brooke Taylor here? Did she come on back?
She did. She should be joining us in just a second.
Okay, great. Thank you, Deborah.
Okay, thanks for coming back, Brooke.
Thank you. I apologize for
Not at all.
technology issues. All right. So my name is Brooke Taylor. I'm a full-time faculty in chemistry, wrapping up my 17th year at LCC. For a brief period of time this term, I was the chair of the hiring committee for a full-time faculty position in chemistry. Other members included my colleagues and fellow full-time faculty in chemistry, Gary Mort, John Thompson, and Doug Young. On Thursday, February 18th of this year, the chemistry discipline at chemistry was authorized to recruit for a full-time faculty position. The position was not posted to the LCC website until Thursday, May 27th, 14 weeks later. During that time, the college failed to move the position forward, and instead of
So Brooke, you are breaking up.
chemistry when we raised the issue of the lack of timeliness for the hire, as well.
So Brooke, can you hear me? Oh, did we lose her?
We did.
Okay. So I'm perhaps we could follow up with Brooke and ask her to submit her public comment in writing. I'm sorry that she wasn't able to provide that for us tonight. So I am going to go on to the next person on our list, which is Adrienne Mitchell, LCC EA President.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Adrienne Mitchell. I serve as president of LCC-EA, representing the 200 full-time and 315 part-time faculty of LCC. I will read the first half of a joint statement from LCCEF and LCCEA, and Frankie Kokenor will read the second half. We make this joint statement in solidarity. First, we advocate for adequate staffing across campus so that LCC may fulfill its mission. In order to serve students, it is critical to ensure that both classified and faculty positions that become vacant are filled in a timely manner. Both LCCEA and LCCEF share a strong commitment to working together with HR and others on campus to ensure that LCC attracts a diverse pool of applicants and makes real progress toward hiring individuals from underrepresented minority groups. Substantial delays in posting positions, short timelines, and off-cycle hires contravene this mutual goal. For instance, several faculty positions were posted at the end of May or early June, and at least 3 faculty positions that were approved several months ago to begin in fall have not yet been posted. Posting faculty positions in late spring or summer for a fall start will dramatically reduce chances of attracting diverse applicant pools, especially in high-demand disciplines, because the academic hiring cycle usually ends in spring with positions offered at that time. In short, LCC is posting positions when or long after most faculty hiring for the next academic year is already complete. Another example is delays in filling adequate classified positions in financial aid, which provides a critical service necessary for the operation of the college. And Frankie will continue with the second part of the statement.
Hey, Frankie Kokenor from LCCEF, welcome.
Thank you. So good morning, board members. I'm Frankie Kokenor, president of LCCEF, representing the 329 contracted and 158 non-contracted classified jobs at LCC. I will read the second half of the joint LCCEF LCCEA statement as follows. Second, we are advocating for the restoration of proctored testing services for students on campus in fall. We understand that the pandemic has brought many challenges and unprecedented demands for everyone in the campus community. At the same time, as we move towards increased in-person instruction and student services, we think it's critical to meet student needs for in-person proctored testing. Prior to the pandemic, the campus offered a robust system of proctored testing for students taking online courses and for programs that require proctored testing to meet external accreditation standards. For example, please see the attached list of courses, which is 5 pages in length, that had test proctors and instructional testing services, ITS, from July 2018 through March 2020. Specifically, we request the restoration of ITS hours during the day, weekend evenings, and Saturdays, which are critical to meet the needs of students who juggle jobs, childcare, and other responsibilities. In addition, we request that sufficient staffing be provided in order to meet student demand for testing. Thank you for your volunteer service on the board and for your work to ensure that student needs are met through adequate staffing, timely hiring processes, and restoration of student services such as in-person proctored testing.
Okay, thank you both. So I do not have anyone else on the list who has requested to give public comment. Is there anyone in the attendee section who did not have the opportunity to submit their name who would like to give public comment? You can indicate that you would like to do that by raising your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone do that. So we are done with the public comment portion of our meeting tonight. And I do see that we will have somebody follow up with Brooke Taylor. I would also like to encourage anyone who spoke this evening to please share your written statements, perhaps particularly that resolution that was passed with the board, or at the very least with me by email. Thank you. All right, so I will move us on to our consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull something from the consent agenda this evening? Board members? Okay, not seeing any hands. Matt, there we go. Matt, would you like to pull something from the consent agenda?
Thanks. I'd like to pull the item E, certifying the election results.
Okay. So we will move item E, certifying board election results, to the action section of our agenda. Is there anything else that a board member would like to pull from the consent agenda? And seeing none.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. I was just going to ask for that. So moved to adopt by Mike Eister and seconded by Rosie Pryor. Donna, can you call the roll for that vote, please?
Sure. Holly Johnson.
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus.
Aye.
Mike Eister.
Aye.
Matt Keating.
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings.
Aye.
Rosie Pryor.
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye. Okay, we have approved the consent agenda. Let's go ahead and move to our action items. And since we adopted the agenda with
Chair
flexibility.
Fragile,
Yes,
don't we need to cycle back to the item pulled from the consent agenda?
yes, correct. I was just going to say, since we adopted the agenda with flexibility, I would like to look at that item first before we move on to the other action items. Thank you, Rosie. So let's go ahead and Matt, since you pulled it, would you like to say why you pulled it and what you're thinking?
I am looking at a document that is different than what I'm looking at the abstractions, and I was hoping just as a ceremonial gesture to thank the candidates who ran and won and congratulate them and make a motion accepting. Oh, here we go. I move to accept the official abstracts of the May 18th, 2021 special election, Lane Community College Board of Education, and declare the winners as Holly Johnson, Zone 1, Mike Eister, Zone 3, Austin Folnaghy, Zone 4, and Steve Maital, Zone 5.
Thank you for slowing us down a little bit to recognize the election of these individuals to our board. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Matt, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I recall, and Rosie, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall that we traditionally have not had this particular motion as part of our consent agenda, so we could use it as a springboard to illustrate to the community that Lane Community College is in good hands, and Holly, Mike and Holly returning and welcoming Austin and Steve. You all round out a wealth of experience and excitement that you bring to the board, and I look forward to seeing great things to come. And I will miss you all, of course, but it is a wealth of talent that we're bringing onto the board.
Thank you, Matt. Is there any other discussion? All right, then I will have Donna call the roll. The motion is to accept the official abstracts of the special election.
You have farm workers coming in.
Holly Johnson.
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus.
Aye.
Mike Eister.
Aye.
Matt Keating.
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings.
Aye.
Rosie Pryor.
Aye.
Lisa Fragile.
Aye. Great. And I'm excited to have these board members join us. So folks know we will be swearing these new board members in at the beginning of our board retreat in July. So our next action item is resolution number 657, the 2021-22 budget adoption and appropriation. And I believe that we have Zach Evans here to provide us with some information.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fragile. Sorry. We have resolution 657 to adopt and appropriate the budget for fiscal year 2022. And I wanted to bring attention to a small change from the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee. With the addition of funding streams from a seismic grant for the Florence Center, as well as a kind of a change in the approach of how we're using higher education emergency relief funds for some space remodels for public health issues, there's been a small change to the plant additions program in Fund 8, our contract and grant fund. It does not change the overall total budget for that fund. It was just a reallocation between our programmatic expense functions within that fund. So that is included in the resolution attached in board docs.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Zach? Okay, seeing none, then I believe I have a motion from Rosie.
Yes, I move the Board of Education approve resolution number 657 2021-22 budget adoption and appropriation.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Good, thank you.
Okay, simultaneously seconded by Mike and Matt. So Rosie, did you want to speak to your motion? That was I'm getting better at reading lips. That was a no.
That was a no.
That was a no. Is there any discussion with the board? Anyone? All right, Donna, can you please call the roll? The motion is to adopt the 2021-22 budget and appropriation.
Holly Johnson,
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Matt Keating,
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings,
Aye.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye. Okay, so that motion passes. So our next action item is resolution number 658, imposing and categorizing taxes for 2021-22. Zach, do you have some information for us on this?
Only the recommendation to impose and categorize taxes for fiscal year 22.
Okay, so are there any questions for Zach? Okay, Rosie?
I move the Board of Education adopt resolution number 658, imposing and categorizing taxes for 2021-22.
Do you have a second?
Second, and I have a question.
Okay, great. So we have a motion to adopt, and Rosie, did you want to speak to your motion? No? Matt, your question?
And my question revolves around the expansion of the taxing district on the coast. Will that take place effective immediately? Will it take place 91 days after sine die, or will it take place in 2022? And the answer would be directly related to this in that how soon will they be part of the taxing district family?
Great. So I don't know if Zach or Brett wants to answer that.
I'm happy. Do you have it, Zach? So because the bill was signed in the second half of the session, the date that was originally indicated in the legislation last December, I believe they missed that deadline. And so I've reached out to the HEC to see what the new timeline looks like. I believe it's sometime this spring. The amount of revenue that the college will see, we're not expecting any huge amount of new revenue, because likely any additional property tax revenue will be offset in the state distribution formula.
Back of the napkin math, Brett, am I right to gauge that it's around $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year?
That's probably close to about right. The HEC was having trouble coming up with an exact total because they didn't have all the property data for the lots in that area.
Okay, great. Thanks. And I like your border.
Thanks.
And we'll take that. Every little bit helps. So any other questions or discussion on this topic? Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution number 658. Donna, could you call the roll, please?
Holly Johnson,
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Matt Keating,
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings,
Aye.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye. So that motion carries. I will move us on to action item C, which is the construction manager general contractor method for the Florence Bond project, or the CMGC method. And is Tom Goodhue here with us? Will he be providing some information?
Tom isn't here, but I can provide some information.
Great, thank you, Jennifer.
Yes. this construction project is going to be around $5 million taking place in Florence, and it's to upgrade all of the major systems on the Florence campus. This is a building that hasn't seen a lot of upgrades since it was built in the 70s. Needs new heating, ventilation, air conditioning, a lot of parking lot stuff, seismic. And the reason why we would like to use the CMGC contracting method for this project is, well, one of the reasons is because we have had a hard time finding subcontractors to work on projects in Florence in the past because it's a small market. So the CMGC contractor can get on board early and start working to find those subcontractors who can work in the area and who are willing to take the job. So that's one of the reasons. And then another reason, other reasons are similar to what the Building 19 seismic project. This is again a seismic grant project with a strict timeline requirement. And it's going to be complicated because we are doing all of these HVAC and seismic projects, but we also want to keep the building active for students as much as possible. So that adds another layer of complexity and is a reason why we want to get a contractor on board early so that they can help start working with the architect and us on planning for how to do that.
Okay, are there any questions for Jennifer? Okay, I do have a question before I'm going to go to the motion. So Jennifer, I do remember hearing that one of the benefits of the CMGC model was that it allows more flexibility in selecting or awarding the contract. Could you explain the difference between this approach and like your typical bidding process?
Yeah, with design bid build projects, we put the project out there on the street and then contractors bid. It's a hard bid. They know who their subcontractors are going to be. They typically take the lowest bid because they want it from their subcontractors because they want to get the award. With CMGC, we hire a contractor and then they look for subcontractors and, you know, we can't direct them to select local contractors or minority or women-owned businesses, but we can ask them to try their best and to prioritize that. And that has been happening on the Building 19 project. They have seismic project. They have been working with us on that. And I can provide you a report on that. I don't have it prepared this month, but next month.
Okay, great. Thank you. Rosie?
I move that the Board of Education exempt the Florence Buildings seismic upgrade project from the sealed bid process in favor of the construction manager / general contractor process.
Second.
Hey, Rosie, did you want to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Is there any discussion from the board? Okay, so we have a motion to accept the CMGC method or process for this project. Donna, could you call the roll, please? Oh, Angela.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to say. I wanted to thank the staff for the report. I thought that it was really helpful and informative and very thorough. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Angela. So let's go ahead and call the roll on that motion, Donna.
Holly Johnson,
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Matt Keating,
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings,
Aye.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye, that motion carries. Okay, our next action item is the sole source contract to Convergent Technologies for fire and security system maintenance. And Jennifer, did you have some information about that?
Yeah, I'll just say that the reason why we put this proposal forward is because we've installed equipment that Convergent is the company that will work on it. In order to go out and contract with a different company, we would have to install different equipment. So we feel, for that reason, we feel that this is the most affordable way to move forward with service on our security and access control systems. And excuse me, also, they've been doing a good job for us, and we're happy with their work. And if you have any more detailed questions than that, we have Mark Richardson here, who's the Associate Director in Facilities, who can answer them.
Great. I did just see him turn his video screen on. Thanks for being here, Mark. Are there any questions for Jennifer or for Mark? Okay, seeing none.
We approve the sole source provider method for identifying convergent technologies for the contract for security and safety maintenance in the amount of $513,535.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Mike, did you want to speak to your motion?
No.
Any other discussion from board members? Matt.
Thanks. I may have missed this part, so my apologies if it was covered. How when we change things up like this, how do we still use the community benefits agreement lens? Because if we didn't change it up, the projects would meet a threshold by which we would use the community benefits agreement. But we're changing it up, and so there isn't perhaps a legal lever that would be used, but nevertheless, is the community benefits agreement lens utilized in any way when we advance a CMGC?
So good question. So are you asking if we are using the community benefits agreement for the sole source contract?
Yes, in particular, yes.
Okay. Jennifer?
No. No, we did not include that in the contract. It's an interesting question, and I guess I've been so focused on implementing the community benefits agreement on construction projects, and this is just maintenance, so I wasn't thinking about it in that way. But
okay, Rosie, you're still muted, Rosie.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I thought it was pretty clear from the description provided to the board in our packets that this is a company based in Illinois, and that the reason administration is recommending we continue to use this vendor is because we've already used this vendor and we would have to spend the money to acquire totally different equipment. So I'm satisfied that there are going to be circumstances that come along when it will be challenging to apply the goals the board has for local contractors. I'm satisfied there is not a local contractor in a position to provide this service.
Mike?
So I think that there are things that we're not totally powerless. They're obviously not going to move to Oregon just so they can meet our requirement, but there are other elements of the community benefit agreement that we could communicate to them and say, you are a sole source right now, but it's important for us to let you know that these are priorities for us and that it would be our preference that you would meet these conditions. Just FYI, for your information, I think we could easily communicate that, and it would be beneficial to do that.
yeah, we will do that. That's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, and Matt, I see your hand is up again.
Yeah, I appreciate Mike making the point that the living in state isn't the only element of the community benefits agreement that this board finds attractive. Mm-hmm. And I would just hope that beyond construction for maintenance and other projects that are sizable, that in the future that we're looking at all contractors through through the multitude of community benefits agreement lenses that this board has spent an exhaustive time finding consensus on, please. Or coming to consensus too. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Rosie, did you have something else? Okay. So we have a motion on the table to, I'm going to look at the language here, to accept the sole source contract to Convergent Technologies. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to have Donna call the roll.
Holly Johnson.
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus.
Aye.
Mike Eister.
Aye.
Matt Keating.
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings.
Aye.
Rosie Pryor.
Aye.
Lisa Fragala.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. So going to move us on to resolution number 659 to recognize Juneteenth. And as just a little bit of background about this, this is something that is happening throughout the state. This is something that Marge actually brought to the attention of the board. And there is also a movement, which is part of this resolution, to make it a national holiday. Currently, I believe there are around 47 states that have already recognized it as a state holiday, including Oregon, but the federal government has not yet recognized it as a national holiday. And so, is there any discussion on this resolution that would involve the college recognizing Juneteenth as an official holiday of the college? Holly.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fragala, and thank you for that background information. So I'm kind of hung up on the word campaign. So therefore, I'm at the last paragraph. Be it also resolved that Lane Community College Board of Education hereby adopts this resolution in support of the National and State of Oregon Juneteenth holiday campaign, and encourages participation of the community college in observation of this day. So when we say that, are we just acknowledging that a campaign exists and we're just saying that we're on board with that? Are we just recognizing that Juneteenth is and that slavery ended and it happened? I'm just a little confused on this. What are we agreeing to? And going forward, are we saying that we recognize it as a day that we should all have a picnic and read a book and find out more about what Juneteenth means? Or are we getting towards adopting this day to be observed as a day off for workers with pay, for no school, for our students? I'm just a little confused. Are we just saying that it happened, it exists, and June 19th is now Juneteenth and we're on board with the campaign? I'm just a little confused and I just need a little clarification.
So I can address the word in support of the campaign. So that does express our support of the movement to create a national holiday. That is part of it. But and though the resolution recognizes that support, and we could also direct the chair of the board to take further action, for example, to write perhaps to our federal representatives or something like that. And I would be happy to do that. And it would make it an official holiday of the college. And Marge, I'm not sure if you would want to say more about what that might mean.
Okay, so first to be clear, I'm texting Brett to be sure, but today it was, I think it was passed by Congress today, and it's waiting to be signed by the President of the United States.
Yeah.
So we're almost there, and it was passed as a state holiday. So we're there. What it sounds like is if the board is interested in pursuing it as a college holiday, you could charge me in working with HR and the collective bargaining units to acknowledge it as a college holiday.
And what would that mean?
That's exactly my question.
It's at the pleasure of the board, but it could be the way we recognize many of the federal holidays, like July 4th. Perfect example, Independence Day. This is an Independence Day. It would be treated as a similar holiday. It could a day off, if you want to think of it that way.
Okay, Matt?
Thanks. It's my understanding that House Bill 2168 that establishes Juneteenth as an official state holiday wouldn't take place officially until June 19th, 2022.
Yeah.
And at that point, it would be an official state holiday, essentially a paid holiday. I would ask Brett to correct me if I'm wrong. This college recognizing it tonight in advance of the celebrations in Alton Park, which are all day, noon to 7 this Saturday at Alton Baker Park, is the official Juneteenth celebration. I was at the one last year distributing Black Lives Matter signs, and it was a phenomenal, inspiring event. But to Holly's point and to Marge's point about what the college can do is follow the cues of the state in regards to 2022. It's and then this week, essentially, it would fall on Saturday, and so it's a bit of a moot point as far as a paid holiday this week. But I think that I think that there's an opportunity to get our P's and Q's from the legislature, the state legislature, which passed it to take place starting in 2022. It's news to me. I've been in council mode all day, so I did not know that the federal government advanced it as well. That's exciting. So I'm thrilled to support this. I just don't know if we want to denote a date in regards to the holiday or taking place 2022, or if we just want to simply establish that these are our values. And then one final point, if I may, Chair Fragola, I want to channel my inner Greg Evans here, who had a very open and honest conversation with me in recent days about the fact that slavery still exists on this planet and in these United States. Sex trafficking, for-profit prisons, indentured servitude throughout our planet. There's arguably more slaves right now than there ever have been in the history of the world. So it's, I think, an opportunity. I don't know what the language would be, but I think there's an opportunity, and maybe even recognizing it tonight, but having the future board tackle this as a learning moment, as an actionable moment, the same way we did Black Lives Matter resolutions last year by asking folks to contribute to the Black Minds Matter Student Fund, by engaging in the Me and White Supremacy workshop. I think that there's a learning opportunity and actionable items that would benefit the new board gelling together at either your next meeting or your next retreat. So I would be thrilled to pass this tonight, with the caveat that the new board take it on as a larger piece to have that larger educational moment about slavery.
So that is great news that it has passed at the federal level. I did want to address your question, Brett. My understanding, I did want to address your question, Matt, that my understanding is that it doesn't become an official it doesn't become a paid day off officially until it is recognized by the federal government, that even when state governments recognize it as official holiday, it doesn't
have to be recognized as a paid day off unless the federal government does, or unless an institution like the LCC, Lane Community College, decides to do that, right? So it's good news that it's becoming a federally recognized holiday. Holly?
Thank you for that clarification. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying it doesn't become a paid holiday unless it's recognized by the federal. Is that correct?
It
And
doesn't
then-
become a required paid
Required.
holiday. Yeah.
And then after that, the community college then also has to make a decision on
So
whether or
under-
not.
So we could direct the president to enter into negotiations with our unions to begin discussing this as a paid day off.
I would like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Holly, am I understanding that do you want it to be part of the resolution, or do you feel comfortable with the resolution as written and we can provide that direction to the president as a board?
That is correct. I feel comfortable with it as written, and I would like definitely for us to provide that direction to the president if we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. Rosie.
Thank you. I was going to make that suggestion that we adopt this resolution this evening to telegraph the board's support and direct administration to bring back to the board some recommendations about how to treat this particular holiday at the college.
Great. So I would also support passing this evening. I think I'm in agreement with much of what was said, that there is a lot to recognize, a lot to learn. I see this as a part of the continued work that we've committed to as a board around our own personal anti-racist process and unlearning and learning some of that, and as well as establishing action items for the board. And we will be working with someone at the retreat to think about how we can go even deeper to integrate equity, diversity, inclusion, and access work into the way that we function as a board. Not having it as something that is a separate lens that's siloed somewhere else, but how it becomes part of our engaged responsibility as a board. So I do see this as part of us continuing to move forward with our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion work. Rosie?
I'm sorry, that was an old hand.
Okay, so is there any other questions or discussion regarding resolution number 659?
Has a motion been made, Chair Fragola, to adopt its passage?
A motion has not been made, Matt. Would you like to make a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Matt and seconded by Holly and Rosie. So Donna, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll have Donna call the roll.
Hey, Holly Johnson,
Aye.
Angela Van Kraus,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Matt Keating.
Aye.
Chelsea Jennings,
Aye.
Rosie Pryor,
Aye.
Lisa Fragola.
Aye. Okay, and so that motion carries. Thank you. And Marge, do you feel like you have sufficient direction from the board of how to move forward with this?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marge. Okay, so this is going to bring us to our discussion section of the agenda. And the first item that we have there is our COVID-19 reopening safely update from Provost Gerald.
Thank you, Chair Fragola. Good evening, members of the board. As far as our reopening update, there have been, since our last board meeting, no changes to the institutional plan. We have had several departmental plans that have been reviewed by the reopening advisory team, as well as the cabinet. Most of those centered around end of year activities, and we're starting to now see a flurry of activity around summer and fall kind of work. We have provided for you what I would call the beginnings of a consideration matrix, if you will, to help in the conversations that you will be having regarding requiring vaccinations for our campus community, our employees and the students. We realize that's a complicated decision. It's a decision that affects our entire community, and we recognize that it's not easy. There are certainly health and safety concerns, fiscal concerns, equity concerns, et cetera, along with the unfortunate political implications of the decision one way or the other. Our goal really this evening, and as you work through this decision, is to provide you with information as we know it to support your decision making. We want you to be aware of what we know and what we understand, and anything else that you might find useful. As you know, the state will soon be at the 70% vaccination level that Governor Brown highlighted in her last briefing. I think we need 60,000 more individuals to get a first dose, and then we'll cross that threshold. It's expected that when we cross that threshold, that at that point, OHA, HEC, and OSHA will rescind prior restrictions and guidelines, and then we will be left as an institution to develop policies and procedures that follow CDC guidelines, new CDC guidelines, and also Lane County Public Health guidelines and recommendations. I think you might be aware that the CDC has recently, about a week ago, a little more than a week ago, released two sets of guidelines sort of for higher education. One for a fully vaccinated campus, and one for a campus that's considered a mixed campus where everyone is not fully vaccinated. If we are a mixed campus, we would likely have to have more restrictions in place for a longer time frame to ensure the health and safety of those individuals that are not vaccinated on our campus. We certainly will follow the will and the direction of the board. We can go either way, whether we have a mandate or not. We will work with Lane County Public Health, and we will use CDC guidelines to develop our plans for fall and moving forward. So we're here to help answer any questions you may have, provide any additional insight and information that you may desire. And if there are things that we can't address today, we certainly can provide them in a timely manner for your consideration. So here to answer any questions that you might have. And we have a suite of folks here that contributed to the development of that matrix that can also chime in as needed as well.
Matt, I see you have a question, and then I have a question also.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Chair Fragola. I do have a question and then a motion. So I'll wait for your round of questions, or wait for a round of questions to go through before I make a motion. But okay. My question revolves around the matrix that you referenced, Paul. And Paul, nice tie, by the way. That's sharp. The matrix that you referenced, I'm on the college's coronavirus information page, lanecc.edu/COVID-19, and I don't see it. Is there a place where that matrix is publicly available?
No, it's not. This is something that we put together over the period of the last several days. I think as it looked like the board wanted to have a conversation about vaccination requirements at this particular board meeting. So this was just put together by several different individuals on campus that have been actively engaged in this work just within the last several days.
Do you think it's important to share that with us if we are to make a decision tonight, one way or another?
It has been shared with you. It's my understanding it was emailed to you. I'm sorry.
I will.
For that.
I will.
It was just finished up in a suitable manner for you all last evening, I believe.
Okay. I will look for that, but it's not available to the public yet. That's correct?
That's correct. We didn't develop it for the public, no.
Okay. Thanks.
So my question, I was wondering about that too, because I did remember seeing it and I was just looking for it and didn't see it in board docs. And
So I was wondering where that information was available as well. So I do have a question about, so when we are thinking about these two guidelines for the fully vaccinated campus versus the mixed vaccinated campus, what would that look like in terms of the impact on the services that students will be able to receive? And I'm thinking about, does it mean that a fully vaccinated campus that we are able to open more services to students at versus a mixed vaccinated campus? So what would the difference look like in terms of us supporting the educational goals for the college?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can to answer that. Some of the detail, the devil will be in the detail, obviously, but I think it's safe to say that the greater the percent of vaccinations of our campus community, both employees and students, the less restrictions that we will need to have in place, and they will be able to be lessened in a shorter time frame. We plan to work with our goal, regardless of whether we have a vaccination mandate or not. Our goal is to work with Lane County Public Health to develop some guidelines that if the campus population is at X% vaccination, then these are the kinds of restrictions that would be in place. If it's at 90%, then these are the restrictions that would have to be in place. So it would really be based upon that piece, right? And the only way I think that we would know what the real percent of vaccinated individuals are on our campus, employees and students, is if we did require a vaccination and we did require individuals to show proof of that vaccination. Then we would know 80% of our employees and students on the campus are vaccinated, 20% have requested an exemption. So we would know that number. And then that would allow us, I think, to work more closely with Lane County Public Health to have really good plans for what types of services we could have in person. Really, what we're talking about is social distancing. Would we still require social distancing, and how much? What would the capacities be in the different buildings and rooms based upon that percentage? And then also, how would we ease mask wearing indoors in particular in that setting? So that's really how we would approach this process. So I would say, knowing the percent vaccinated and having a mandate we would have a higher percent vaccinated, and we would probably have fewer restrictions in place, or at least would remove restrictions more quickly.
I have Mike in the queue, followed by Rosie.
Could we mandate reporting without mandating the vaccination?
I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat it more loudly, please?
Okay. Could we mandate reporting without mandating the actual vaccination so that we would at least have data to know where our population is?
I'm not sure of the,
Is that a HIPAA violation or?
No, I don't think so. If you're asking, depends on how you collect it. I mean, I would want to give you, I'm not prepared to give you a really thorough, firm answer right now, but that's something we certainly could research. I understand the question. So I'll find that out for you, Mike. So basically the question is, can we require folks that are coming on campus to show, not on demand, but at least so we could track it, whether they've been vaccinated or not. And then that way we would have a good number, because in the absence of that number, we would just have to go by general Lane County data, I would think. So I'll run that one out to some folks that are a little bit closer to that question from a legal point of view than I am, but we'll get that for you, Mike.
Can I speak to that? This is Dawn Barth, COVID compliance official for the college. I do believe, Mike, that the challenge with that would be at more of a HIPAA violation, in that if it's mandated, we can maintain that record in a confidential manner in creating the health records, which would live within our health clinic or within HR, versus just asking people in general. I believe that we would have more challenges from a HIPAA standpoint if we just ask the question. The other thing to keep in mind is that the waivers in Oregon are so liberal that it really doesn't change a lot in where we stand as a college, because people can choose to not be vaccinated for any reason, medical, religious, or other. The only thing that it really strengthens for us is right now, if we put out a survey, it's completely anecdotal, based on people may or may not answer it. They may or may not answer it truthfully. Whereas if it's mandated, it is accurate data to help us with planning. That's really the only difference from where we sit right now, is hard data versus anecdotal.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dawn.
Rosie, followed by Matt.
Thank you. I'm prepared personally to support a mandate, but for a variety of reasons. I do believe the Board of Education must listen to the faculty and classified union leadership, which has indicated to us that the majority of their membership supports a ban. I think we have a responsibility to do everything possible to keep faculty and classified and managers and so on safe at Lane Community College. There are vaccination requirements in public schools. I don't think this is an extraordinary requirement. However, I would like to qualify that support by saying I support a mandate provided the college does everything possible to make vaccinations readily available to any student who would like one, and educational information available about the safety and merit of vaccination. We've had our foundation board of directors urge us in no uncertain terms to adopt a mandate. We have heard from some percentage of students that there is a desire for a mandate. I think we have an opportunity to set an example as a public entity in Lane County, to encourage vaccination, to support vaccination, to help people get access to vaccination, and to do everything possible to keep people safe who are associated with Lane Community College.
Matt?
Everything Rosie just said is A+. I have three quick things. One, can we please share the matrix that was shared with us on board docs? That way it is part of our public record, since we are discussing it openly in public. Two, beyond the foundation, King Estate Winery is a most reputable business and a pretty damn good Pinot, and they have a mandate to vaccinate all employees. I sat last night, no mask, in a fully vaccinated section at the reopening of PK Park. And it was great. Dodger fans and Giants fans at the Emeralds were asking each other, can I buy you a beer? We were celebrating the fact that we were vaccinated. I've long from this virtual dais attempted to get us to this point, and it would be my honor, colleagues. My last point is a motion. And the motion is, I move LCC require all students and employees to be vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus in the 2021-22 school year, and will allow for both medical and non-medical exemptions consistent with Oregon state law. The LCC board directs the president to implement this order in accordance with the CDC, Oregon Health Authority, and Lane County Health Authority guidelines.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Rosie? You're muted.
I'm wondering if you would entertain a friendly amendment. You put a timetable on it. You limited it to just this coming academic year, and I don't know why we would do that exactly. I think we need to just say we require vaccination against COVID-19, full stop.
I accept the friendly
because if
amendment.
somebody comes
You're
for the
right,
first-
you're right, Rosie. I accept the friendly amendment.
Okay.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it may be even wise to denote on campus. If someone is taking online courses, that's a perfectly reasonable exemption.
That's a good point.
Okay, so
on campus should mean any brick and mortar facility.
Right. In-person instruction.
Yeah.
However, whatever suits the board, I would accept the friendly amendment, and I would also accept a little bit of wordsmithing if that's
okay,
appropriate.
so I need a second and then we can accept that friendly amendment. So
I already seconded.
okay, so you seconded.
You mean for the friendly amendment?
No, not for the friendly amendment. I didn't realize you were.
I had already seconded.
Okay, great. So we don't usually use the chat, but Matt, would it be possible to post that in the chat so that we can all see it and so
Yes.
that Donna has a copy of it and
Yep.
with the friendly amendment changed?
Yep. Stand by.
Okay, thank you. And I see Mike has his hand up.
So if we pass this motion, does that mean that anyone who's not vaccinated would not be permitted on campus? Is that what that would mean? Or would they be permitted with a mask or some other stipulation?
Paul?
So thank you, Lisa and Mike. That's a good question. I think that, operationally, there are a couple different ways to go. I don't think we want to police this on campus. That adds another layer of complexity. I think we would want to go by the honor system or something like that. But in order to be considered in that fully vaccinated, our campus population, students and employees, would either have to show generally to a central location proof of vaccination or request an exemption in order to be on campus, would be my understanding of how that would play out. I think that's how, for example, U of O and Oregon State and other institutions are working around that one.
Okay, and my question, and then we'll go to, I see, oh, Mike put his hand down. So my question is, how important is the timeline for making this decision in terms of planning for enrollment and to begin planning for all the operational details that are needed? Because I'm just going to say, I see this as choosing to go down either this rabbit hole or this rabbit hole, right? They're both going to be operationally complex. And so I'm curious, about the timeline needed, Paul, to be able to prepare the college to effectively enroll and plan for this.
There's significant work associated with either rabbit hole we find ourselves in. So, from that standpoint, just practically, the sooner we know, the more the faster we can get started on this work. I think we are currently set up with restrictions in place under current status quo. So it's more work for us, I think, in terms of the logistics of everything, of moving toward the fully vaccinated state. If there were a mandate, there's more work that goes along with that, but there's also work that goes along either way. So it's hard to know, but we have, things we'll have to put in place. And I see Dawn might have something to contribute to that as well.
Dawn, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say these are conversations we've been having hypothetically, Laura Green and I, for the last probably 2 months as we've been in vaccine clinics. I'm also meeting regularly, or not meeting regularly, but having conversations with the University of Oregon as to how they are managing it. So I know how it's being handled at the University of Oregon. And my husband actually works for student health at Oregon State. So I know exactly how Oregon State's doing it because it's being done in the room right next door to me. So we do have some advantages in that other people have already created the wheel, and they'll let us use the wheel that they've already invented. So we are a little bit, we're not as far behind the 8 ball as you would think, thanks to those that have already done a lot of the planning for us.
That's correct. Thanks, Dawn. Yeah, a lot of background work already.
Angela, and then I have Matt.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be fully vaccinated, and I am excited about the opportunities for return to something more like normal with vaccines. I'm not prepared to support this motion tonight. I think that this matrix has a lot of information that I would like to digest. I'm not convinced that we can implement it in a way that doesn't disproportionately affect BIPOC. And I'm not ready. Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you. I would submit that not doing anything has a disproportionately affects our BIPOC student population. The matrix, if I could go back to that really quick, I'm not a lawyer, but I have great concerns about information being shared with the board only and then discussed in public.
So point of information. The matrix has been uploaded to board docs. So go ahead and continue to express your concerns. It is uploaded.
By not doing so ahead of time, may put us all in open meetings violation. That's the big concern. And so I strongly urge that for the future, any public conversation about a document that's sent to us should be made public before we have the conversation. Going back to the point about the University of Oregon and Oregon State University having a full vaccinated plan, almost identical to the motion I've made. There's such a crossover, especially of ducks and titans, that one set of rules for one set of students, staff, and faculty, and not that same set of rules does not make sense in our community. I get why HEC has not had a one size fits all across the board. We're a lot different than Klamath or Rogue or SWAC, but our neighbor right here, University of Oregon, and the rest of the Pac-12 have taken the bold step. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Dawn, I don't think I have personally thanked you for the massive effort, the yeoman's job you've done to ensure that our community have been vaccinated by spearheading of the vaccination sites at Lane Community College. I would concur with colleagues, and I don't think it needs to be codified, but I would concur with colleagues that should this pass, and I certainly hope it does, for the safety of our entire community, that students or anyone who needs a vaccination be able to do so on our campus readily. And if we can get that commitment, I'm sure that might help our colleagues think about supporting this as well.
Okay, I have Holly and then Mike.
Wow. This is a tough one. And while I respect the motion that you put forward, Matt, I am still struggling with this one. I understand that this is a safety issue and that we all want to be safe and provide safe spaces for our students and staff. And I respect those public entities, for providing this space and getting us back to quote unquote normal. But what is this going to do? Mandating vaccination and showing proof. That part right there, I don't know why it just gets to me. So I go back and forth with this one. And that's, I walk into a space and someone says, and I say, I'm African American, and someone says, show me proof. No, I don't have to do that. I'm not going to. So when we talk about our attendance and our numbers and access to an equitable education and being in the building, I mean, here we go again. So for someone to walk on campus, and if they don't go into the health center and show their vaccination, then are they escorted off the campus? Are they not allowed to be in the building? Now I guess they have options. They can go online, right, to get their education. I'm struggling with this one. We know our numbers for the communities of color, BIPOC, whatever you want to call them, are low already. And for people, for whatever reasons, they're not getting vaccinated. They don't feel safe. They don't trust. Religious, and I understand that we would then follow the CDC and the Oregon guidelines and all that. But what are their options then? To wear a mask? I didn't see that in there, that yes, they're allowed to be on campus as long as they wear a mask and social distance. And so I'm just a little confused. I think that this is not fully developed, the statement. So I'm halfway in support and halfway not, because I know that this is directly going to affect our numbers. And then we're going to get back to the conversation about access again and equitable access to education and why aren't I allowed in the building? So I'm torn here.
So Dawn, I saw your hand. Did you want to respond to some of the questions that Holly raised about how people who have waivers or who are not vaccinated, how that would be approached?
Yeah, so Holly, the great thing about the system as is and the policies that have already been written is this is all information that is submitted confidentially. You submit it directly. You would not be asked. I would not walk up to you ever and ask you about your status. And campus policies would be based on the fact that that information was submitted confidentially. And if you personally had made a choice to not be vaccinated, the waiver system that is set up in the state of Oregon, for any reason, you can choose to have a waiver to not do that, which right now, all that waiver is you either need to watch a video or you need to meet with a healthcare provider that just educates you about vaccine, and then that would be your checkbox. So that's all you have to do, and that's done on your own privacy. It's not anything, nobody would pay, public safety wouldn't walk up to you and ask you for your card. But we as a campus then could use the data that you submitted confidentially to set up plans.
Okay, so I have Chelsea in the queue, followed by Mike.
Thank you. I want to make it clear that I am fully in support of vaccinations. I myself am fully vaccinated and have been for quite some time. I am fully in support of the concept of mandated vaccines when it comes to being able to go back to school or attend LCC. Additionally, what I will also say is that there are very understandable questions that all of us have, and this is a huge operational undertaking in order to make this happen. And I think that we can all agree that we are committed to anything that we move forward to making sure that we're moving forward with it in a way that allows for the greatest success possible. By not putting this motion in board docs and having it be part of our packet early on and giving board members time to think on it, all of us now are being put on the spot for something that we likely have strong, beliefs in, but now we have all of these questions operationally about how to make this most successful. I think all of us would have appreciated this having come forward much earlier with much more time to think about it. If I recall during the work session, Matt, you asked that a board member's new policy language be given out much earlier. And this is a much bigger decision than, some changing of wording to a policy. So I just want to express my frustration for the fact that, I feel like I'm being put in a place now where I very much want to be in support and in favor of mandating vaccines, but I don't feel like this has been presented in a way where it's given all of us opportune time to think about it, ask thoughtful, detailed questions, and it has not been presented in a way that will allow this administration to successfully put this all into place.
Marge?
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. Our original intent, there was no recommendation coming in because we know how highly emotional, political, this is very charged. And we wanted you to have the opportunity to at least hear what we're hearing and have some information for you that you could digest it. Now, how much time you'll want to moving forward, we're going to leave that up to the board. But I think we needed you to understand that this is not a decision we're taking lightly. I have been in meeting after meeting at the state level about our BIPOC community, about the implications if we do, if we don't. And that's why I really appreciate that you are struggling with us. You do have to understand that. So I just want to put that out there, that's why it didn't come to you as a recommendation. We really thought you'll know when you're ready, but we wanted it start the conversation. And that original pros and cons matrix, literally Paul worked on it this week as talking points. It was really just meant to be talking points so that he could articulate that with you. So we have it up on board docs now, but there's many more points than that. I think, I don't know how much you know about the surveys that have gone out. And I think the unions, though, they've said they've been in contact with you to show their support. Thank you.
Can I quickly respond to that, Chair Fragala?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that my frustration is not at all with the information that we have been given and provided by the administration tonight. I want to thank Paul, Dawn, everyone who has worked diligently on this. I appreciate the information that's been given forward. My frustration lies with a colleague putting forward a motion that we have not had time to, adequate time to think about or look at or ask questions about. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Point of information, Chair Fragala.
Yes.
Just point of information, this language has been vetted by legal, is not something that I just randomly came up with. That board leadership communicated with me because I've been beating this drum for 3 months. So administration has been prepared. Dr. Hamilton and I have talked extensively about this. So it is not, I can see how it could be interpreted like I'm just deciding on the fly. That is not the case. That this language is very carefully crafted in a way that mirrors existing policy from our higher education partners right across the street. So this is not Matt Keating wants to go out on a blaze and ensure that everyone's vaccinated. This is an opportunity for us as a community to put the safety and welfare of our entire campus community at the forefront. We owe it to our students and our staff and our faculty to ensure that our institution is safe. And the best way to do that, especially since we have hybrid online learning, is to say, if you're on campus, you're vaccinated.
So I have Mike in the queue, followed by Holly. Thanks for being patient, Mike.
So it's clear to me that the science indicates that vaccination is safe and effective. And for those reasons, I support vaccination. I am fully vaccinated, have been. I'm not prepared to vote for the motion tonight. I would like a little bit more time. I would like to see if more data becomes available as more people become vaccinated in the state and in the county, and to see if those increased numbers might guide us in one way or another with regard to making a policy. So I'm not prepared to vote for the motion tonight.
Is there anyone else? Okay, so I would just like to say that I have, as an educator, really struggled with this issue. You know, I work in public schools where we have many vaccination requirements with a lot of room for personal waivers. And so I am fully vaccinated. I support being vaccinated, and it's been really challenging for me to think about where I fall on this decision. But I really believe that because of the way that the CDC is setting up the guidelines of being a fully vaccinated campus versus a mixed vaccinated campus, that we will better serve our students if we can achieve a fully vaccinated campus, and that we will be able to provide more services to them. We will be able to provide access to facilities more readily. And either way, this is really difficult operationally. And I think that the question is not whether we need to decide how complex this issue is going to be. The question that we need to decide is, are we ready to support requiring vaccinations for students and employees at the community college at LCC, knowing that our staff is going to have to deal with the operational details of that our employees are going, that our president is going to have to figure out the nuts and bolts. Either is going to be a tremendous lift. You know, we can either all continue to wear masks on campus in the fall and continue to implement lots of social distancing and other safety protocols as a mixed vaccinated campus, or we can move in the direction of being a fully vaccinated campus with a lot of room for people who have personal, religious, or medical reasons to have a waiver. So I fully support the idea of being vaccinated. I support that we have it as a requirement, and I know it's going to be difficult operationally either way. And so I'm going to support the motion tonight so that we can make the decision in a timely fashion to begin giving staff the time to figure, and staff, faculty, and employees the time to figure this out. Dawn, did you want to respond to something that I said?
I just want to make sure one other thing. I appreciate the board's commitment to making a good decision for the whole of the college and in taking on all of the pieces. I will say information that has been passed on to me. One of the hardest challenges in compliance is when we don't match what is happening in the rest of the community. So when you are weighing your options, you know, Chair Fragala, as you were mentioning, it's going to be hard either way. But I do want to make sure that the board is taking into account, if we are the only place that adult learners are having to wear a mask, our faculty and our staff are going to face the challenges of students who feel that they don't have to wear a mask based on CDC guidelines. And that will be an extra challenge as well operationally. And I support 100% whatever decision the board wants to make. And I will continue to do the job that you've asked me to do. I understand 100% that it's going to be difficult either way. But just understand that that is going to be an additional challenge operationally, and want to make sure you consider that.
Rosie?
Thank you. I would like to say that I really very much appreciate the thoughtful discussion the board has had so far this evening about this. And I want to observe that there have been times and there will be times when the board needs to consider the ramifications of delaying decision-making to the degree that we make it less clear for administration to operationalize something that we may be even articulating an inclination to do at some point. I regret that personally. I don't want to be part of making it even more challenging for administration to operationalize what we may ultimately ask them to do. So there are going to be times when the board is asked to consider something thoughtfully, carefully, listening to each other on the floor of a board meeting just like this, and come to a decision, even though we haven't had weeks, days or weeks to give it the kind of thought we might ordinarily prefer. I truly empathize with that concern. I do. I just am concerned about delaying this and causing further challenges for administration, particularly if this is something we are seeming to incline toward. My thoughts.
Okay, I have Mike followed by Angela.
So my question is for Dawn. I'm aware of campuses pre-COVID that, in fact, maybe all campuses required MMR immunizations, and that actually had staff members who were responsible for following up and enforcing that. So I don't know if that apply, if LCC has that policy in place, and whether we do or not. It seems that if we have that policy in place for MMRs or other required vaccinations, that we would have to apply the same rules to a mandatory vaccination for COVID. Am I making any incorrect assumptions there? Or can you shed any light on that, what I've just said?
Yeah, Mike. So there at Lane Community College, we do not have any mandatory vaccines campus-wide. We do for specific programs, mostly within our health occupation programs. They are required to have several vaccinations, and they cannot proceed to register for classes until they've documented that they have received those vaccinations. So if we were going to follow that model, which is what the universities are doing, I assume that's what we would do as well, is that once that documentation, whether that documentation is a vaccine or a waiver for the vaccine, is input into the system, there would not be a hold on a registration. So I would assume that is the model we would follow, but we do not require MMR.
So if someone doesn't provide the documentation, are we prepared to disenroll them?
That is an operational question we have not yet answered. I doubt we would disenroll them, but there are holds that come on after, but I don't, again, that's not an operational decision we have made. We're waiting for those fine details until the board has made a decision.
Okay, I have Angela followed by Holly.
I have just sort of a wording question. The language uploaded to the chat references OHD. I'm assuming that means to reference OHA. Is that correct?
Oregon Health Authority, you're right. Or Oregon Health Department, but yeah, OHA. Thank you.
It's called OHA.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Apologies for the typo.
Holly followed by Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought Rosie had her hand up. So I'm just curious if the administration, how far are they willing to go with the mandating, and who is going to verify and how does that happen? Because as of current, I believe there is a white card that everyone gets when they're vaccinated and carry it around with you. And pardon me, Don, if you've already addressed this, Or are you going to go directly to the health department and gather confidential records to prove someone has been vaccinated? So how does this happen? Does a person come up and prove it on a form and we take it on the honor system? Do they show their little white vaccination card? And hopefully they didn't buy it on the corner, right? From the scammers who are probably selling them now for about 20 bucks. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if the administration has taken any of this into consideration. So how exactly are they proving their vaccination? With their card they're carrying in their wallet, by the health department directly to the school or the institution, or by honor system, word of mouth? Or has anybody even thought about that? Because, and then again, I'm sorry, the last question. So if a person walks on campus and says, I'm vaccinated, then what? I mean, where do we go from there? Is it when they register online and they show some kind of proof, or they give consent to the health department on campus to go get information from the Oregon Health Department or wherever they came from, their health? How are they proving that they're vaccinated? I guess that's my question.
Dawn, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I will respond to that. We have had conversations, Holly. So the first thing I want to address is your question about just if they walk onto campus. So the great thing where I feel that this value comes into play is when we have collected the data, we already know a percentage. So it's similar to the state of Oregon saying when 70% of the population is vaccinated, then we can loosen these restrictions. So if you're walking onto campus, we're assuming that because the majority, whatever percentage that we work out with Lane County Public Health, it's okay for a person to walk on campus, right? On and off. They're visiting, they're getting set up, they're figuring out what all the requirements are. You're welcome to be here. It's only at the point when you're registering for a face-to-face class that it would be required to show proof of vaccination. And that's based on we've already reached this percentage of the population that are already vaccinated, that we would be getting from the Oregon Health, or not from the Oregon Health Authority. That is information that we would be working with Dr. Ludke at Lane County Public Health that would help us to make that plan. As far as how they would provide proof, students can upload the card to SoftDocs. And so that's what the universities are doing. They're requiring students just to upload their card. We do have the ability, one thing to keep in mind, we have an actual health clinic on our campus, and they are an authorized site with Oregon Health Authority. And because we've been doing vaccines, we input the data. They can actually go in and see anyone who has been vaccinated if there was ever a question. If they were vaccinated in Oregon, if they were vaccinated somewhere else, it would be different. But again, and they also would be able to indicate in there if they have done the waiver, which the waiver would be that whatever the state determines, the video or met with a physician or whatever. So that is information that would be uploaded. And our health clinic staff are prepared. We've talked about a number of different ways it could be done. Again, looking at how Oregon and Oregon State are doing things, that's what they are doing. They're having students upload the information into their health record at the health clinic, which is what we would have the ability to do. Each of our students already have a health record, so it's maintained HIPAA confidentiality. It goes directly into their health record.
So Holly, I see your hand is still up. Did you have a follow-up to that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, so putting a hold on registration means that a person is kind of the same as disenrolling them. It's saying you either provide documentation now, or we're not going to permit you to enroll in this class. And I don't know what we do about employees who don't want to apply for an exception and also don't want to provide documentation. At the same time, I don't want to sound like I am anti-vax. I am not at all anti-vax. I think vaccination makes all kinds of sense, but I'm really reluctant to mandate it, particularly when we're moving in a direction when we're going to have 70, 75, 80% of our county vaccinated, which is approaching herd immunity. I shouldn't say that like I know what I'm talking about, because I don't. But it sounds to me like a lot. And it may be requiring a mandate when it's not necessary, I guess is what I'm speculating.
Except it is though, with respect, because of the CDC guidance. So we're not allowed to, we only can fall into one of two categories. We're either a fully vaccinated campus, which fully vaccinated means we're either getting vaccinated or we're requiring a waiver. One of those two things makes us a fully vaccinated campus. If we are not a fully vaccinated campus, we're not following the local, we can't follow the same as Lane County. So it would be a situation where as an adult, I can go into Costco, I can go into Home Depot without a mask on, but when I go to work at LCC or whether I take a class at LCC, I have to wear a mask because we're not a fully vaccinated campus. Because that OHA guideline and the OSHA guidelines are going to fall back to CDC, which is either one of two categories. And the information there is great. And I highly recommend, if the board does not make a decision tonight, I highly recommend that you look at the CDC guidance comparing the vaccinated and non-vaccinated campus, because it's very different in the services that we're able to offer if we are not a fully vaccinated campus.
So I understood that, Dawn, and it doesn't make me uncomfortable to mandate masks. That doesn't make me at all uncomfortable. But it would be handy or nice if we were all doing the same thing countywide or even nationally, but that isn't the way it's happening. And so I think I am more comfortable at this point requiring a mask than and social distancing than I am mandating a vaccination. As supportive as I am of vaccinating, and as important as I think it is for people to be vaccinated. So that's where I am right now.
Angela?
Thank you. I know this question was already asked, but I'm hoping I can ask it again. What is the timeline in terms of decision making? I don't think I was super clear on the response. I'm sorry, Paul. When do you need us to make a decision?
Yeah, I mean, I sure, I can't put a firm date on that. I mean, we know that we're going to have decisions that we have to make. We're currently already enrolling for fall. So we do have students that are already enrolled absent any decision, and will continue to enroll. So, I mean, all I can say is the sooner the better. I mean, we are planned right now, the way we are set for fall is with mask wearing indoors and social distancing and all of the other precautions that are currently in place. And so from that standpoint, without a mandate, those things are likely to stay in place, and that's the direction we'll take. If we have a mandate, then there is work to do to figure out what the reopening plan is with Lane County Public Health. And we would do that anyhow, just based upon general Lane County data to see if we can, as soon as the restrictions are lifted by the governor, as soon as we are no longer under the institutional reopening plan and all of those mandates, we're still going to have a plan to ensure safety of unvaccinated individuals on the campus. It's just that I think with a mandate, we have fewer of those on campus. So the path that we would take is less restrictive to be able to do that. The back end piece of the registration, collecting information from students and employees, I'm sure there's work associated with that. I don't know, what difficulties we'll encounter in doing it, but I'm sure we would rely on our partner institutions that have already figured that out to kind of guide some of that work. And I'm sorry, I can't be more specific. I wish I could. Yeah.
Chair Fraggle, if I may follow up. So I think based on the fact that this was put in our packet as a discussion item, and that I'm hearing at least some colleagues feeling like they need more time, myself included, I move that we table this motion until our next meeting.
So I would like to make a clarification about that motion to table something. So tabling a motion is typically, and Michael Blade can pipe in if he likes, tabling a motion is something that is typically done. There's some confusion around these motions. So tabling a motion is something that is typically done when there's more of like a extreme circumstance, like the board needs to leave to go to somewhere, or they need to make another decision very quickly, or they have to end the meeting. So the correct motion would be to delay.
I believe, based on the parliamentary procedures training that I just took and should have pulled up my notes in advance on, I should move to postpone.
Postpone, that's the word.
So I'll rephrase if I may and say I move to postpone this motion.
Okay, thank you. So I would need a second for that. I heard a second
I'll
from
second.
Holly. Okay, and Matt?
May I ask the maker of the motion to accept a friendly amendment that you postpone to a date specific that would be likely to give the college enough time? The July board meeting, there'd be a new body. My feelings are not hurt. You know where I stand on this, but it might be appropriate for the next body to make that decision. And so I would urge colleagues, if you're going to postpone or delay, to do so to a date specific, and that date be the next time the body meets together as a whole.
And I would also say that typically you do postpone to a date and time. So Angela, did you want to respond to that request?
Yes. So the motion to postpone, again, according to the parliamentary procedures training, is in fact a motion to lay it on the table until the next meeting. So it's already inside.
Okay, great. So we have a motion to postpone until our next board meeting that has been made by Angela and seconded by Holly. Is there any discussion on that? Matt?
I think it's a good idea. I welcome it if really that's what you need. I will vote against the motion in order to hopefully vote for and send a clear message to the community that we stand with our university partners and we stand for science and we stand for fully vaccinating our campus. So I appreciate the thinking, and if it plays out that way, I hope that the next board take enough time to digest the facts and embrace a fully vaccinated campus for the fall of 2021 and beyond.
Any other discussion? Mike?
No, my discussion will be back on the main motion, so I'll pass on.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to postpone. Is there any other discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask Donna to call the roll. So again, I'll just repeat the motion. The motion is to postpone Matt's motion, which you can see in the chat, until the next board meeting. So an aye vote would postpone this decision. Donna?
Okay. Holly Johnson? Was that aye?
Aye.
Okay. Angela Van Kraus?
Aye.
Mike Eister?
Aye.
Matt Keating?
Nay.
Chelsea Jennings?
Aye.
Rosie Pryor?
No.
Lisa Fragola?
No. So that motion passes to postpone. So Matt, Mike, I believe you had something else you had wanted to say. Can you hold it until we get to the next discussion that we have about this? Okay, thank you, everybody. That was a really great conversation. I love how this board was able to engage in that difficult conversation. And I appreciate the support from staff and all the questions that were answered for us. Perhaps if board members have any information requests or things that they need to come to a decision at our next board meeting, if they could please forward those to myself and to Marge, and we will do our best to get you the information that you would need. So I'm going to thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
I am going to move us on to equitable search practices, which is our second discussion item. And Deborah Butler is got a presentation for us.
Thank you, Chair Fragala. I'm going to just clear my mental energy so we can change gears here a little bit. I was really doing some thoughtful listening to the conversation that was just happening. So I just wanted to start out by letting you all know that this work is really being taken on by our HR recruitment analysts and that team in HR, which is Shane Turner, Sharon Daniel, Amanda Blunt, and Dana Castro. I've been fortunate to be able to collaborate with them a little bit, to meet with them and to engage in these conversations, which has been great. And we've talked about some specific searches that I've been a part of and have been interested in trying to include some of these ideas into searches that are happening at the college. But this is really their work. And Shane had a family obligation tonight, so he's not here, but I'm glad to answer any questions that I can. And if there are questions I can't answer, then we'll make sure that we follow up with you. The second thing I just wanted to mention as a framing note is that I'll be talking really about recruitment of search recruitment in general and not about specific searches. We do have a couple of searches that are ongoing right now. You might recall that I emailed some information and shared it with other folks around campus about the Vice President for Finance and Operations search a couple of months ago, and some of the equity features that we were trying to integrate into that search. And that search is still ongoing, so I might not be able to answer specific questions about that. I just wanted to mention that. And so I'm not going to read from the slides, but I will be drawing attention to specific slides, so let me know if you'd like me to share them. First off, I'd like to talk about, there's the slide number 2, which is why does diversity matter? And this is really, I think, where we have to start the conversation, because it's going to require, we acknowledge that it's going to require some really consistent, continuous messaging to our campus community and some reminders about sort of where the why of the work. So why are we doing this? Why are we engaging in this work? And why is it important? I know you all know why it's important, which is why you'd like to talk about it. And I think a lot of us understand why it's important, but it's good for us to have sort of a set of ideas that we can agree on about why it's important for us to really put priority on this right now. So in our why does diversity matter question, the answer to that, there are several answers to that, but some of the answers to that are that as a college, we prepare students to live and work and thrive in an interconnected, multicultural global environment. That's what we do as a college. And so we need to make sure that those values are a part of our recruitment and a part of our hiring process. Our students and prospective students, and I would add community members and new employees at the college, expect to see college employees who look like them, and that's important to us. Evolution, innovation, and creative solutions require diversity of thought, experience, and perspective in collaborative teams. And then finally, talent is not concentrated along a single dimension of identity. That's something that we all acknowledge, but it's helpful to kind of just call it out explicitly so that we can make sure that we understand why we're doing this work. There are a number of slides in the presentation about demographics that compare various employee groups to our student demographics. These data are from 2019, and the reason that they're a little outdated is because that was because 2020 was kind of weird, because we don't know for sure what effect the pandemic and a reduced level of recruitment and hiring and changing student populations might have done. And so we're going to take that into account, and we're going to compare it to 2019 and 2021 and moving forward. We're also looking back a little bit further at data, and that work is really being done by Amanda Blunt in our HR recruitment office to look for trends and to try and figure out where there are trends and where else we can intervene to make those populations comparable. You can see that the closest employee group in terms of demographics to our student population is our classified employee group. The second that's a little bit further away is our faculty employee group. And then last is our management employee group. I think it's worth mentioning that our management employee group is quite a bit smaller than the other two. And so we're talking about smaller numbers when we look at the percentages, but it still definitely shows that we have a long way to go. And so the question is, how do we solve that? And the way that we're looking at this work right now is about designing interventions at various points of what we call the talent acquisition funnel to intervene and make sure that we are attracting the largest number of diverse candidates, or the largest, let me think here, the largest range of candidates, and making sure that our pools are as diverse as possible. And then also just making sure that we're tracking and paying attention to where there are changes in the demographics of our pools so that we can intervene at those points and make sure that we're doing our checks and that we're making sure that our processes are not causing candidates to drop out. The top of the talent acquisition funnel, which is really the first couple of steps that a candidate would come into contact with the college, is about awareness and consideration. So that's really about, do you know what the college is? Are you aware that the college is a major employer in the community? As of 2020, we were the 9th largest employer in Lane County. So is a candidate or potential candidate aware that we exist and that we are an employer? That's part of it. Then we think about, what is the reputation? What is the image that the candidate has in their mind of who we are as a college? And so our landing page, especially for our landing page for candidates, is really important. And HR is working on that right now to try to revamp that and make it more dynamic and provide more information really easily accessible to potential job candidates. And that includes not only information about the college and information about our values and our mission and our vision, but also about the community, the culture of the community, hopefully some resources about what kind of resources might be available in the community, perhaps community groups and other types of cultural events and things like that. We want to give people a sense of what it might be like to live in Eugene and whether or not they feel like they could enjoy their life here. And so they're working with some external groups to try to gather some of that information. They're also working on creating some video testimonials and short kind of snippets from current employees who might have something that they'd like to share on that site, on the landing site.
Deborah?
This is, yes.
Do you want to take questions as we go, or would you like to take them all at the end?
I'd be glad to take them as we go. Again, if I'm unable to answer them, I'm glad to come back with an answer, but I'll certainly try.
Okay. Mike, I see your hand up. Did you have a question for Deborah?
I have a comment and then a question. First of all, I want to commend the team that worked on this. This is very thorough, comprehensive work, and I want to commend you in particular, Deborah, for the report. It's very straightforward, and even I can understand it. The other thing that I wanted to suggest or offer as an idea is you have the statement in there about why does diversity matter, but it seems to me like an additional statement might be helpful in terms of providing a rationale for why do we need to do this work. And what popped into my head is something along the lines of bias exists and it influences us, and to overcome the impact of bias requires deliberate and rigorous effort. So to just offer further rationale, I just offer that as a thought for you to consider.
Thank you, Mike. That's really helpful. I appreciate your comments too, Mike, about the presentation. And I do just want to say that this team has worked really hard on this, and that this can be really, as you can imagine, sort of emotionally taxing and emotionally charged work. And they care very much about it. And they've been very enthusiastic and are excited and poised to make some changes. And so I'm really excited to be able to work with them in that regard. I'm going to go on to the next level of the funnel, of the talent acquisition funnel, and feel free to interrupt me if you have any other questions or comments. The next level is interest, and that's really where a candidate knows, or a potential candidate knows about the college and is thinking, I think I could work here. I think I might be interested in working here. I want to know a little bit more. This is where HR marketing really kicks in, and this is one of the areas that we're going to be working on very, very seriously. So in the past, our HR marketing process was really that individual departments that were doing the hiring or search chairs would sort of determine where they thought the position should be posted. There were a couple of standards that we always post in, but it was really kind of left up to the department. And there was also very little money that was available in HR to support marketing. And so there would be a little bit of contribution from HR, and then anything above that would be borne by the department. And so what we're going to do is centralize the marketing purchases in HR, which we hope will allow departments to have a much more robust and involved conversation about where to market positions at the very beginning, and to really bring together the people who are content level experts about the position and the people who are marketing experts about HR, and they can talk about how to target candidates for the position. One of the areas where I think that this has come up fairly recently that I can recall, and an example of how this might work is that if we're hiring for a position that is really a nuts and bolts kind of finance position, in addition to sort of our standard marketing locations like higher ed jobs and the Chronicle for Higher Education, we might also consider advertising with the National Black MBA Association. There might be other kinds of professional affiliation organizations that might have transferable skills that we know could be really useful. And so we might extend the offer there too. We also would look really carefully at the posting language at this stage, and that's another place where HR is going to perhaps be a little bit more involved and maybe a little more intrusive about the way that that's managed. So the posting language, we're going to try to make sure that the language for all postings is standardized to be gender inclusive, to make sure that postings are as short as possible. I'm sure that having read some of our documents at the college, that we're not always great at being super succinct and clear and keeping things brief. But we know that shorter postings attract more job candidates, and more candidates means bigger pools, and that's exactly what we're looking to do. We're also going to try to reduce the required documentation with applications. So in some postings, we might have required like a writing sample and transcripts and some other type of work sample. So we're going to try to standardize those and require as few mandatory inclusions as possible at the very beginning. The reason for that is that in our hiring processes, typically folks who are candidates who don't include everything at the very beginning are disqualified, and then their scores are never really tallied with the pool. We're going to examine the minimum qualifications for every job really carefully and engage in some conversations about what the actual minimum qualifications should be for each individual position. These are sometimes sort of difficult conversations because some of these postings have been recycled multiple times, and there's a perception that whatever the qualification is really necessary. I'll give you an example. If we had a position where we said that a candidate was required to have a PhD and 12 years of administrative experience, for example, your pool of candidates is going to be pretty small who can qualify for those minimum qualifications. We also know that women and people of color are less likely to apply for a job if they don't explicitly meet the minimum qualifications as listed, whereas we know that white males are more likely to apply for a job and to be able to draw an equivalency to other types of experience so that they can qualify to be in the pool. Also included in our postings are our diversity statement. There's a bilingual statement usually, and then there's an equivalency statement. And so we would be revamping all of those statements to make sure that they were really clear and that they really reflect what the values of the college are in terms of our commitment to equity and inclusion. The next stage in the talent acquisition funnel would be the application stage. So this is where the candidate comes into contact with our internal systems. We know that our applications can be kind of long and can take a while to fill out, that we require candidates to repeat a lot of the information that's probably included on their resume. And so we're going to try to make those as short as possible or make them as simple as possible from a user perspective. We're going to work on what that might look like by looking at best practices from other places. When we think about the selection phase of the talent acquisition funnel, this is about interviews and probably the first contact that the candidate might have with individuals at the college. So talking about the position, talking about the requirements of the job, talking about interview questions and paper screening and that kind of thing. So we're going to be very careful to make sure that there are early conversations and trainings in regards to bias, especially implicit bias and equity with the search teams. This is something that I've done with search committees for a couple of years now and has been really well received. So we do equity lens training. We've also done some identity wheel training and some other types of training that are really about helping committee members recognize the aspects of their own identities and how that might create biases in the way that they're thinking about candidates. We've also considered blind screening, which would be manual redaction of identifying information from the application materials before the committee screens them. And that is certainly a possibility for the future. We don't have an easy light labor way to do that right now. So it includes a lot of work from HR. And so that one might be a little bit challenging, but we're definitely taking a look at it. The last phase in the talent acquisition funnel is really about hiring the person. So that's really our hope is that we hire qualified candidates that help us achieve our goal of bringing greater diversity into our employee ranks. There are a couple of institutional efforts that are related to this work that I just wanted to mention. One is CCPD training. So cultural competency training across campus certainly contributes to this goal and helping all of us as employees have access to training to think about our own biases and cultural fluency. This last year of remote working has certainly contributed some new perspectives to this process. We know that we can do remote interviews and we actually do them pretty well. That means that we know that we can have larger candidate pools, that we might be able to do multiple rounds of interviews. So we might be able to sort of keep the funnel as wide as possible for as long as possible, which might result in a better outcomes for hiring. And then finally, I just wanted to mention a couple of collaborations that we're considering. One is with the OSU Search Advocate Program, which is something that has been mentioned here before. We're looking at doing a first round of training on the Search Advocate Program with a group of folks in the fall to roll that out. It's going to take us some time to build up capacity and have enough people to take part in all searches who have gone through that training. And so we're trying to be sensitive about that and think about how to not overtax the few people who might be able to go through the training early on and make sure that we can kind of spread that talent out a little bit. And then finally, thinking about consultant assistance. So there are some consultants who participate in this type of work and help colleges develop equity and inclusion and recruitment plans. And so we've been in contact with some of them as a possibility. We're talking about the services they might be able to provide with us. One is Academic Learning Institute and one is ACCT. And Greg Evans has been a big part of that work and has been a big part of all of these conversations. So this is all a work in progress, and these are just sort of the starting points. I know this is a lot of information, and I'm hoping that I can help with questions, or we can provide a follow-up of information at a later point.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much, Deborah. I really appreciate all the information and the work that's gone into this. I see Mike has his hand up.
So I'm not sure where all this slideshow might be used. So if it's going to be used more broadly, I did have another thought about the selection portion of the pyramid. And you addressed it verbally, but I didn't see it written in there. I think it might be helpful to be explicit about the implicit bias training, and because that's just such an important part of selection being done well. And to me, it's worth calling out as another tool.
Yes, thank you.
Holly?
Hi, thank you, Deborah, for that. It looks like you guys put a lot of work into it. I noticed, though, that you didn't start with an equity stance, or is that something that you guys may have thought about, might want to think about? I guess depending on who you're going to share the document with, but I think an equity stance might be helpful somewhere in the document.
When you say an equity stance, I just want to make sure that I understand.
The college's equity stance?
Oh,
Do we
sure.
have an
Yeah.
equity stance? Where are we coming from?
Yeah. I appreciate that. I will say that one of the things, so right now we're in the process of creating our next strategic plan. And so there were some references earlier about the equity statement from our current strategic plan, and we definitely can put that back in. I think we just probably narrowed it down to mission, vision, but didn't really call that out explicitly. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
One more question, if I may.
Yes.
You mentioned that you didn't want to tax, the few people who I think that you're including on some of these search committees or trainings or involved in the work. Have you guys ever thought about going outside of the college, or just staying inside of the college when you're recruiting folks to sit on your committees? For example, if you work very closely or have a consortium agreement with other departments, schools, cities, civic groups, I'm just curious, have you ever stepped outside of LCC knowing that the numbers are very small? I assume that you're looking forward to sit and represent on committees. If perhaps we want to look outside of LCC with partnerships and organizations that we work closely with, maybe some of our CTE programs, or just a thought.
Yeah, that is a great idea. We do certainly in some positions, we have had searches where we have external folks join in those. Especially ones that are public facing. So in our KLCC positions, for example, and then in some other higher level positions, we have included members of the community. But I think that's a great idea to maybe pursue some kind of a formal agreement or reciprocity sort of agreement. So thank you for that.
Marge, I'd seen your hand. Had you wanted to respond to that, or okay. Holly, did you have anything else? Okay. I was actually wondering if we have considered asking applicants for an equity statement.
That's a great question. So we typically do not ask for an equity statement, but we can. And in fact, some of our candidates do, especially for our executive level positions. Sometimes those are materials that are prepared commonly for those types of positions. What we employ instead frequently is a supplemental question that might ask something specific about equity, about your interests in professional development around equity, or sort of in what ways you've pursued equity and inclusion work in your professional life, things like that. But I think that including an equity statement would certainly be something to think about.
Okay, great. Well, I do appreciate the information and the work that is being done. And I hope that we can continue to look at this as a process and not just a document, and that it's something that we are revisiting and continuing to work on.
Yeah,
So thanks.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments with Deborah? Okay, thank you. I am going to go ahead and move us on to our reports from the student government and our unions. And so we have Amber Coleman with the LCC student government.
Chair Fraggle, I don't believe we have a student government representative here today.
Okay, so if we do get someone in the next short time here, then we'll fold them in. So let's move on to, thank you for that, Paul. Let's move on to a report from Frankie Kokenor from LCCEF.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Frankie.
Let me get to my statement here. Sorry about that. So, hi, I'm Frankie Kokenor, the president of LCCEF. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'd like to discuss COVID vaccinations with the board. Before I get to that, I would like to say thank you very much to Matt Keating and Chelsea Jennings. We appreciate everything that you've done for us, and we will miss you both. And congratulations to Mike Eister on your reelection to the board. And I'd also like to welcome Holly Johnson, Steve Maital, I hope I said it right, and Austin Volnegi. We really look forward to working with all of you. The newest COVID variant in the US is B.1.617.2, also known as the Delta variant. In the beginning, it was known as a double mutant because it had 2 mutations that make it more of a threat. Today, it has been reported that the Delta variant now makes up 10% of the new cases in the US. Dr. Angela Rasmussen, an American virologist, said in an interview with NPR, if you've been fully vaccinated, then this variant isn't really much of a concern. However, if you are not fully vaccinated or you're unvaccinated, it's a big concern. So the real moral of the story is not to worry about this variant. You should go out and get vaccinated. Vaccinations are a normal requirement for most college students. Students that transfer to public universities from our college have to get vaccinations or prove that they've had their vaccinations to attend. In their considerations for reopening, the American College Health Association recommends COVID-19 vaccination requirements for all on-campus college and university students for fall semester 2021, and all public universities in Oregon are requiring COVID vaccination for students and employees. What is stopping us? I've had multiple classified employees reach out to let me know that they have health issues. They're very concerned about students and their fellow employees not being vaccinated and how that is going to affect their health. I've even had a conversation with a fellow classified employee that cannot get the vaccination due to their health. That employee wants to come back to campus and their provider doesn't want them to return. How can we tell these employees that they'll be safe or that when they come back to campus? How is the college going to protect them? And we do know that many of our students also have medical diagnoses that prevent them from getting the vaccination. What are we going to do to protect them? Not all of these students will want to take online classes. We need to provide the safest environment we can for them to learn in. According to Lane County website, last updated today at 2 p.m., 50.50% of total population is fully vaccinated. 56.58% of our total population, all ages, received at least 1 dose. How does that compare with the vaccination percentage of our students and employees returning to campus? We know that there are many out there who say they would like to get the vaccination or are interested in getting the vaccination, but how many times have we ourselves said we would like to do something or we were interested in doing something? In the end, we did not do it. Don't rely on intentions to keep us safe. Make COVID vaccinations mandatory.
Thank you, Frankie. Up next, we have Adrian Mitchell, reporting from LCCEA, President Adrian Mitchell.
Good evening. First, a couple of thank yous. Thank you, Chelsea, for your service on the board, especially through the challenges of the pandemic. And thank you, Matt, for your longtime service. Your role in supporting the open access social justice mission of the college has been superlative. I'll speak briefly on a couple of topics. The first is recruitment and retention issues. LCCEA has a strong commitment to retention and recruitment of BIPOC faculty. Our Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee continues working on recommendations. There are numerous challenges to address, including the following, which require immediate attention. Recruitment for full-time faculty should begin with more timely posting of positions to align with the standard academic hiring cycle in order to achieve robust, diverse applicant pools. In addition, representation at the level of upper administration, which has become substantially less diverse over several years, has multifarious impacts, including the decisions that faculty from underrepresented minority groups make in choosing to work at LCC or in choosing to stay at LCC. In addition, challenging working conditions, as reported last month, disparately impact faculty of color at LCC. Such conditions and lack of value and respect resulted in the early retirement of one BIPOC faculty member just this month, from a department where faculty from underrepresented minority groups continue to experience disparate treatment. When we lose just one BIPOC faculty member, the impact affects the entire community. It is also critical to discontinue external hiring practices that take place without involvement of HR and without public postings of positions. Of equal importance is to discontinue internal practices of selecting interims without a search process, as well as to discontinue language and internal practices that seek, and this is a quote, the right people, or another quote, the right faculty, for work that is conducted without open, transparent processes and opportunities for all those qualified to apply or seek appointment. The last topic I'll address briefly is vaccines. As you know, I think from previous reports, faculty have reported strong support for vaccine requirements for both faculty and students. In a survey of 316 faculty members, 316 faculty members who responded to the survey, 2/3 strongly support or support vaccine requirements, with 1/2 indicating strong support. Updated CDC guidance for institutions of higher ed provides substantially more flexibility for colleges that are considered fully vaccinated campuses, including the discontinuation of using masks and social distancing requirements. It's important to note the role and responsibility of public institutions in promoting public health. For example, Lane County Public Health is asking LCC that we make a vaccine requirement. And I would encourage expansive thinking on this issue to recognize that protection extends beyond our individual students and our individual employees to the community, and that public institutions such as LCC have a critical role in promoting public health for the common good. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. So I believe the College Council report is a written report. And so I'm going to move us on to information and accountability reports. Are there any questions for staff regarding any of the information or accountability reports? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I am going to move us to some closing items. So do we have any board reports? Angela?
I was actually just a little bit slow in getting my hand up for a question on the report.
Sorry about that. I'll try to wait. I'll try to get a little more wait time. Yes, what's your question?
Thank you. So the question I asked in advance in email, but I wanted to sort of phrase it again in this setting. So one of the items, there's a very long list of ways that the college ensures the protection of student information. And I know that in the 12A Global Directions report, it's not meant to be an exhaustive list. my question was about policies around locking computers when you're not in attendance. And it sounds like there isn't necessarily a policy like that sort of in general, but there is some work going forward to make some changes potentially. And so I just wanted to really encourage an adoption of some kind of policy like that. As I mentioned sort of in the email, in my day job, my experience is that no matter how secure your system is, the weakest elements are always the people. And it's the people who, you know, forget to lock their computer when they walk away, and then somebody else comes up and is suddenly privy to a lot of information they shouldn't have. And this is particularly important as we're expanding health services. I really, really don't want to have a HIPAA violation. So just really strong encouragement to make sure that we're doing everything we can policy-wise in addition to technology-wise to keep information safe.
Okay, and I see Mindy has her hand raised. Mindy?
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. One of the things I was thinking about is how protected is student information when an employee is not at their desk. And so when you have a place like enrollment services and you have a lot of cubicles in an area, what you end up with are a lot of people walking through, sorry, like a cat, walking through and lots of movement in an area. So first of all, that area is not accessible to anyone other than employees. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that you either have a locking door or you're behind a key card access door. So there isn't easy access at all. However, I really will take to heart the suggestion of having a policy in place for that. So thank you very much.
Matt?
Thanks.
Did you have
I did. Yeah, I did have a question, Chair Fragola, about the. It was submitted by Paul, the Student Services Global Directions Accreditation Standards. On page, I guess it would be page 3 or so. There, we're talking about our marketing program, Elaine's catalog. There's a blurb about KLCC. And it simply says, KLCC, the college radio station, supports the college's vision of transforming lives through learning. Underwriting messages address student success and real education, real results. The core value of diversity is broadly evident in radio, print, and electronic communications. I would submit that there's an opportunity to tell the story broadly and bigger and better than that small blurb. If we could find a way to underscore the reach, the ratings, and the work that KLCC has done to hire a diverse array of paid interns in an era in which journalism is dying, KLCC is thriving. And on my last meeting, I want to underscore and bold and italicize, it is one of the most valuable and important public-facing programs that this institution has. And I think that anytime we mention KLCC, we can and should go above and beyond to underscore the aforementioned reach, ratings, and critical work the radio station is doing to invest in equity and diversity across the airwaves.
Paul?
Yeah, Mindy, do you want to comment on that? Mindy prepared the report. I agree with you, Matt. I mean, we can certainly expand on some of these things. This was meant to be a brief synopsis, but I appreciate your point.
Mindy?
Yes, thank you. I would be happy to expand on that in the next report. I appreciate your comment.
Okay, any other questions about information and accountability reports? Okay, I am gonna take a breath and wait. All right. If you think of one, we can come back to it. But let's move on to board reports. And I'll just even say board reports are ad hoc committee reports. Are there any reports from liaison positions in the community or ad hoc committees? Matt?
It's on top of mind. KLCC,
Yes.
Public Radio Foundation Board, meets tomorrow at noon. And I thank Holly Johnson for your growing interest in attending the meetings as a fellow ex officio observer. Holly attended our last KLCC meeting and was met with open arms times a factor of 10. And so Holly, avid KLCC fan, really appreciate your attendance and your interest. And I look forward to spending the time with you tomorrow with the Foundation Board.
Thanks, Matt. Any other reports? All right, so I am gonna, before we get to future meeting dates, we do have a couple of things to kind of address this evening for the good of the order, as we might all say. One final item is that we have 2 departing board members who we would like to recognize tonight. And so we are really sad to see both Matt Keating and Chelsea Jennings leaving the board. And I believe Marge has gone to get the item, which is the appreciation. And I'm just going to spotlight you, Marge, so that people can see it. And this is a item of appreciation from the college, and it is a painting that was done by a student, and it is called The Road to LCC. And I believe there is also a plaque at the bottom that that commemorates your service on the board. So great, thank you, Marge. I will remove that spotlight for you. So I do want to thank both of you for your service on the board, one of you for 8 years and one of you for a shorter amount of time. And, you know, Matt, you were a student at LCC and you served on this board for 8 years. And I really appreciate the robust thinking that you bring to the board and how much you are willing to advocate for the college, for its employees and for its students. Chelsea, you know, sad to see you go. You bring so much commitment to racial justice, and you really got us going on some really important work. You were the spark that made us see the commitment that we needed to make as a board. I'm not saying this work has always been prioritized by the college, but I feel like the board really grew through your leadership. So thank you. And I'd like to open it up to any other board members who would like to thank Chelsea and Matt for their service or appreciate their service. And the print Road to Lane was painted by former faculty member Jerry Roth. I'm sorry for my mistake on that. It was not a student. It was painted by former faculty member Jerry Roth. Thank you, Marge, for that correction.
Well, if I may.
Yes, Holly.
Hi, Chelsea and Matt. I just want to say thank you for welcoming me when I was appointed back in March, and for your support, your guidance, and your leadership. Matt, you for being available to me when I needed to chat or had questions. Thank you for that, and again for inspiring me and pushing and supporting me on this new journey for me. I am super sad that you are stepping away, but I know that you will be close. I know that because I have you on speed dial now. Chelsea, thank you so much for your kind words when I first came on. I'm just hoping that you all are moving on to bigger and greater things. I know wherever you go, you're going to serve your communities. So thank you for your service. And I will see you at the next meeting, should we cross paths again, but I just want to say thank you.
Mike, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. I want to acknowledge that Matt is, I appreciate Matt for his expertise. There's so many things he knows so much about. I, in fact, talked with him today, just today, about a question that, a technical question that I had, and he not only knew the answer, but he had more information to offer than what I was asking. That was information that was of great interest to me. So I have appreciated Matt for his expertise, and certainly his leadership role on the board gave him an opportunity, expanded opportunity to offer that expertise. Chelsea, there are two things that stand out about you to me. One is, I don't think I've ever seen anyone who was better prepared to interview for a board position than you were. You just did rigorous work and really made our decision. It was a slam dunk decision. We had no decision to make because you were so well prepared and had spent so much time and energy getting prepared. The other area of expertise, of course, was your expertise in the bond campaign and your effort and work on that. You chose a pretty narrowly focused area that really required expertise. You had it, you brought it, and you brought the energy to it. So thank both of you for everything you've done for the college, and look forward to our opportunities to work together again sometime.
Thanks, Mike. Matt or Chelsea, I don't see any other hands up from other board members. Did you want to say anything? Oh, I'm going to let Angela go, and then we'll go to the two of you. Okay. Angela.
A little more time to think by going first, but it won't be much. I'm no wordsmith. I think you all know this about me. But I will say that I have enjoyed my service with you. I appreciate your service. And Lane County, for how many square miles it is very, very small. And I will see you both very soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
So I have Rosie, and then we'll go to Chelsea and Matt.
Thank you. I think I'm considered the dowager board member here at Lane. I actually am in my 10th year, and I am sorry to see both of you go. I think the thing that characterizes both of you in your personal and your professional and your public life is passion. And I have learned a lot from each of you. Some things I wanted to learn, some things I didn't really want to learn, but I have learned from both of you, and I'm sorry to see you go. Matt, I'm glad you're moving on to even more fraught community questions, and I have a resource available to you anytime you want to look him up. I'm sure Chris would be more than happy to sit down with you and let you air your questions. And Chelsea, there was a book about John F. Kennedy. Johnny, we hardly knew you. Well, Chelsea, we hardly knew you, but you're going on to wonderful, wonderful new things. So thanks for all your gifts to Lane.
Hey, Matt, did you want to say anything?
I defer to Chelsea first, please.
Chelsea?
Thank you. Thank you all so much. It's really been such an amazing opportunity to serve. It's really been an honor and a privilege, and thank you all so much for your confidence in me these last 2 years. You know, this last year, to put it mildly, has really been a year of the unexpected in a lot of ways. I mean, when I applied for the Zone 5 vacancy back in 2019, I really had no idea at the time that being given the opportunity to serve in this appointed position would, in fact, inspire me to go back to school and to seek a completely different degree than what I originally got, 10 years ago. But that's exactly what happened. And here I am, starting a new journey in my own education. And I'm so glad that that journey in my own education is here at Lane Community College. I think I've expressed before just how terrified I was to go back to school after having struggled so much when I originally went to college. But my experiences here as a student at LCC have been nothing but incredible, and have given me my confidence as a student and as a learner back, which is something that I didn't think that I'd be able to get back after having struggled so much. I was not planning to cry at all. I like to try and keep a poker face, but tonight's not my night for that, apparently. When it comes to the success of the students here at Lane, the dedication and the passion that all of the instructors have here at LCC is absolutely second to none. And I am so, so grateful to everyone at this college that is part of helping students here at Lane be successful. I feel like I have a very long list of people I'd like to thank, but in an effort to not have the cut the speech music played on me, and also in an effort to make sure I don't forget anybody, because I don't want anybody to feel left out. I just want to give a large, sweeping thank you to everyone that I've had the opportunity to work with, and to everyone that I've had the opportunity to learn from these past 2 years serving on the board. I want to congratulate Mike on his re-election, to Holly on your election after being appointed earlier this year. And then a big congratulations to the newly elected and soon to be board members, Austin and Steve. Thank you all so much for running and for serving. I wish everyone good health and success in the years to come. I love this college deeply. I know that all of you do as well. So thank you so much. Keep doing this work, and don't be a stranger. My door is always open.
Thanks, Chelsea. Matt?
Similar to Chelsea, I don't want to thank a lot of people because I will forget a lot of people, but there are 4 names I will mention. Pat Albright and Pat Riggs Henson, the last 10 years are their fault. They asked me to consider serving on the budget committee in 2011. And in 2013, they asked me to consider running for this board. So thanks, Pat and Pat. I appreciate it. I appreciate your respective service to this board as well, and to our past board members and our current colleagues. You all are tremendous inspirations. The next person I'd like to thank is my partner, Becca, and all of our partners put up with us. Our odd, strange behavior, whether it be from the virtual dais or from the real dais, and our dedication to public service and showing up, they're right there with us. So thank you, Becca. I asked Mike Rose once, former board member, before I was elected in 2013, his advice. And he said, always wear a tie. I took him like far too literally, but it's an allegory. I finally realized 8 years later, because it's a show of respect. respect for the institution, respect for each other, especially at times of disagreement, respect for process and staff, respect for the teaching professionals, our faculty, who pour their all into transforming lives through learning, respect for the struggle, economic, emotional, spiritual, transcendental, racial, physical, that our students endure, respect for our ancestors, respect for the past, recognizing clearly our truths are only informed by our own point of view, respect for oneself, respect for your neighbor, respect for your neighborhood, respect for our community, respect for science, respect for our environment, our planet, our animals, our wildlife, our flora, respect for our future, and respect for each and every one of you. Thank you. Tonight, June the 16th, 21 years into the 21st century, marks my final board meeting as a board member at Lane Community College, but not my final night as an advocate of this beloved institution. I thank you, colleagues, staff, especially Donna Smolik, students, faculty, administration, the electorate, and the entire LCC community. Today, tomorrow, and beyond, it is my sincere hope that I had made a positive impact on this college, the same way that this beloved institution has impacted and inspired me. Thank you, LCC.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you both for your service. I see Mike and Rosie, you both have your hands up, or did you want to have those up? Okay. So I did also want to recognize that Dr. Hamilton made a significant announcement tonight, and that she has announced her retirement. And we are fortunate to still have one more year with Marge as the president. I would have loved to have her for 2 more, but I think we're fortunate to get her for 1. And I did want to recognize that the evaluation that we gave to the president was really glowing and recognized her strong and effective leadership. And that some of the words that were used to describe her were enthusiasm, resilience, strong work ethic, as well as the tireless energy and positivity that she has. So we will certainly have lots of time to continue to get to work with Marge. And I'm sure at the end of that road, we will also have time to appreciate her as well. But I did want to recognize that Marge has also announced something significant tonight. So thank you again, Dr. Hamilton, for your service to the college. And thanks again to both Chelsea and Matt. Is there anything else for the good of the order that any other board member has? We do want to bring your attention to our future meeting dates. Chelsea?
Sorry, really quick.
Yes.
Okay, Marge, I would love the information for the formal faculty member that painted those beautiful paintings for us, so that I can send some sort of thank you. I'm truly so touched by that. And so I just wanted to say publicly how wonderful that is, and how appreciative I am of that. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, just gorgeous, and a nice framing job as well. So future meeting dates and agenda items. So our next meeting date is our July retreat, which is July 10th. And usually retreats are more like a work session, but we will start with a board meeting because we will swear in our new board members at that meeting. And so in terms of thinking about as well that we are looking at the beginning of a president selection process, and we have a lot of work to do for that. I'd also wanted to recommend to my colleagues on the board that we direct staff to begin reaching out to search firms with an information request so that when we do get to July 10th, we can begin a discussion about our search process and begin to think about how we want to move forward with that. So I'm hoping that we can start that. And we do have a year, but we actually want to make sure that person has time to move here before they actually have to start their job. So it'll go really quick. If there are no other, yeah, Mike, you're muted, sir.
I'm assuming we will also consider our postponed motion. Is that an accurate assumption?
Yes, that won't be done at the retreat, but we will look at that at our, we do have a July board meeting before we recess for August. So that I believe is, do you want me to tell you the date of that?
I can look it up, no problem.
Okay, great. It'll be the third Wednesday. All right, if there is no other good of the order, I am